what is meant by development. We need to look at this before we can go into the details of the book. The three major roles of statistics in development is firstly the formulation of the concepts, and then the computation of the measures, and finally model building. Now, when we look at these three concepts from a statistical point of view, very often, even for the traditional, except for maybe the economic or the education factors or health, these indicators are very often difficult to actually build up. But then this is what Professor Chatterjee used to teach in the class. What actually the book is about is something beyond this. So what Professor Chatterjee thought was that the whole development measures were based on what he referred to as outer growth, which is basically the materialistic world. So how comfortable we are in the materialistic world. But he also thought of the development of the mind. So he was actually more concerned with mind over matter. In a sense, he believed in the Vedantic philosophy, so mind obviously became very important for him. But my personal feeling was that he was trying to blend what the ideas of Descartes, which was basically a duality between the mind and matter, and was trying to formulate a measure based on these two. Now, for the first part, when you look at the matter part of it, the materialistic part of it, he thought of something called a well-conditioning index, which would take the measures of what the quality of life in general is for a person. For the other aspect, which he called inner growth, he tried to formulate certain postulates. Now, this is very difficult to do, because how would you define the development of the self? Professor Chatterjee actually was looking into 6 different factors for this, namely the spirit of oneness, the spirit of equality, the spirit of freedom and tolerance, gender unbiasedness, creativity, and awareness. The problem with this were, how do you measure this? And for this, what he looked at were certain concomitant variables related to this, because these were not measurable. So he was looking for some concomitant variables which were measurable and which were closely linked to these aspects. For example, for oneness, he thought that if for this there needs to be a lesser number of crimes, okay, because you have a fellow feeling and there will be less crime. So he was looking into crime data for this. So he found these concomitant variables, and then the problem was to how to find a measure for this, how to compute measures based on this. So what he tried was to use principal component methods and combine these concomitant variables into one single, or maybe the first or the second principal components, which he took as the measures for this. And then he was using the harmonic mean to get a general index for this inner growth. Now, Professor Chatterjee himself acknowledged the fact that this was very difficult to do, the whole exercise. And it actually himself thought that his methods were ad hoc methods. But what he did basically, and what he suggested in the book, lays the foundation of how to measure development from not only from the materialistic viewpoint, but also a development of the human being, a development of the self, a development of a person.